Today, we're not just looking at a biography of some philosopher. We're diving into one of the most powerful stories ever told about conviction and principle, the trial and death of Socrates, all captured by his most brilliant student, Plato. It's this incredible drama about a man who is given a choice: compromise his beliefs or die. And you know what? He chose death.
And this right here, this is the idea that sealed his fate. You have to understand, for Socrates, this wasn't just some clever phrase. It was everything. To live without constantly questioning yourself, your beliefs, and the world around you, well, that wasn't really living at all. This simple, powerful idea was the mission that guided his every move, and it would ultimately put him on a collision course with the most powerful people in Athens.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 399 BCE. We're in Athens, the heart of the ancient democratic world. A 70-year-old Socrates, who is this kind of well-known, maybe a little eccentric figure around town, suddenly finds himself on trial for his life. Now, he wasn't a politician, he wasn't a general, he was a philosopher, and the guys accusing him, some of the most influential men in the entire city. So the official charges against him were pretty serious: corrupting the youth and not believing in the city's gods. But Socrates argued that his real crime, the thing that actually got him into trouble, was something else entirely. He saw himself as a philosophical gadfly, like a horsefly, sent by the gods to sting the great lazy horse of the state. His whole mission? To wake everybody up, especially the powerful folks, by showing them that their claims to wisdom were, well, pretty much baseless. So when Socrates stood up in front of 500 jurors, he didn't give the kind of defense you'd expect. He wasn't begging for his life, not at all. Instead, he gave an explanation, what the Greeks called an apologia, for the philosophical life he had lived, a life that he was convinced was a divine mission. And this whole mission, it started years earlier. His friend Chaerephon goes to the oracle at Delphi. This is the most sacred spot in the entire Greek world. And he asks one simple question: is anyone wiser than Socrates? The oracle's answer was a straight-up no. Now, this news just baffled Socrates. He was famous for saying he knew nothing, so how on earth could he be the wisest man alive? So, to figure out this riddle from the oracle, Socrates went on a quest. He started questioning everyone: the politicians, the poets, the artisans, anybody in Athens who had a reputation for being wise. And he started to see a pattern. Sure, they might know their own specific craft, but they all thought they knew everything else too. And that's when it hit him. His wisdom wasn't about having all the answers. No, his wisdom was in knowing that he knew nothing. It was a humility that all these supposedly wise men completely lacked. Back in court, Socrates made zero effort to save himself with a pity party. He could have brought his wife and kids in, have them weeping in front of the jury, the classic move. And it often worked. But he refused. He argued that a scene like that would disgrace both him and the city of Athens. It would be like asking the jurors to break their sacred oath, to be swayed by emotion instead of delivering justice. He chose principle over a plea, and the jury, by a pretty narrow margin, sentenced him to death. But hold on, the story doesn't end there. We're now in a prison cell. Socrates is waiting for his execution, and just before dawn, he gets a visitor. It's his old, very wealthy friend, Crito. And Crito hasn't just come to say a sad goodbye. Nope. He's come with a detailed, fully funded, ready-to-go escape plan. And this sets up a massive dilemma, right? Socrates has been condemned unjustly. The trial was a sham. The punishment is extreme. So does a good person have the right, or maybe even a duty, to run away from an injustice? Or does he owe something more to the very system that has wronged him? Crito's arguments are so practical, so human. He pleads with him: think of your kids. Think about your friends' reputations. We'll look like cowards if we don't help you. You're letting your enemies win. But Socrates just calmly brushes every single one of them aside. For him, this whole debate comes down to one single unwavering principle. His ultimate duty isn't to his friends or his family, but to the laws of Athens. And this is where he does something truly brilliant to make his point. He imagines the laws of Athens coming to life, standing in his cell, and speaking directly to him. They ask him this very question: Socrates, by this one act of defiance, aren't you trying to destroy us, the very foundation of the state? The idea is, if any person can just decide which laws to follow and which to ignore, the whole system collapses. It's an incredible way to frame the whole idea of a social contract. And so his final decision is made. He will stay.
He argues that by choosing to live his entire life in Athens, enjoying its protections, using its resources, he made a kind of unspoken agreement to live by its laws. To break them now, even when they're being used against him unfairly, would be a betrayal of that lifelong promise. The principle of the law itself, he decides, is more important than his own life.
So now we come to the final scene. The day of the execution is here. Socrates is in his cell, and he's surrounded by his closest friends, who are just completely overcome with grief. But Socrates himself? He's not sad. For him, this is the final, ultimate lesson. His composure was just stunning. His friends are watching him, amazed, as he sits there totally calm and tranquil. He's treating his own death not as some terrible tragedy, but as the ultimate topic for a philosophical discussion. He spent his final moments not panicking, but in a calm, reasoned conversation about whether the soul is immortal. So why wasn't he scared? Well, because for Socrates, a true philosopher spends their entire life getting ready for this exact moment. He taught that death was simply the separation of the soul from the body, and the body, with all its needs and distractions, it just gets in the way of finding truth. So death wasn't an end to be feared. It was the ultimate release, freeing the soul to finally go after pure, unfiltered wisdom.
This was his final message to his grieving friends, a way to comfort them. He was totally convinced that for a good person who has lived a just life, nothing truly evil can happen to them, not in this life and not in the next. It was a statement of absolute faith in his principles. The last moments are so simple yet so profound. The jailer, who is himself in tears, brings the cup of poison hemlock. Socrates just calmly asks, "Okay, what do I need to do?" He takes the cup and, as Plato writes, he drinks it easily and cheerfully. When his friends completely break down and start sobbing, he gently scolds them. He'd sent the women away to avoid exactly this kind of scene. He just follows the instructions, walking around until his legs get heavy, then lies down as he feels the cold numbness spread up his body, and complete control to the very end. The story of Socrates' death has resonated for more than 2,000 years because it forces us to ask a really hard question about our own lives. He chose to die for his principles, for the examined life, for justice, for his own integrity. And so his story leaves us with this challenge. What ideas are you willing to live for? And what, if anything, are they worth?